In a world filled with sharks, bears, and killer bees, one man is brave enough to stay indoors to bring you the latest in gaming, movie, and pop culture news. That man is Tom Awesome, and this is the Outside is Overrated podcast.
Hello and welcome to Outside is Overrated Game Club. Today, we're wrapping up our discussion on Clair Obscur Expedition 33 by Sandfall Interactive. It's a bold and beautiful turn-based RPG with a unique twist on classic mechanics that absolutely everybody loves. I'm your host, Tom Sedlacek, and joining me for the discussion today are Munch Time John Munch.
Howdy, howdy.
The Professor, Mike Mathwig.
Gentlemen.
The ever-fancy Billy Perot.
Bonjour, mon ami.
And our resident Sonic expert, Scott Bullard.
Hey, guys.
Outside is Overrated is presented by Premier Health. Check out their website at premierhealthmn.com. That's premierhealthmn as in Minnesota.com. In this monthly segment, we play a game with our podcast community and invite all of our Patreon supporters to join in the discussion. If you want to join in, support Outside is Overrated on Patreon at patreon.com/OiO. That's patreon.com/OiO. You can help support the show for as little as $2 a month. I'll start by setting some expectations, not expeditions. That wouldn't make any sense. Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to do a brief overview of what Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is all about and give an update on our Part 1 thoughts. We're going to talk more about the combat and progression systems, and then we are going to have complete spoilery thoughts on the story. So if you're playing this game and you don't want to know what happens at the end, we'll give you a very clear point to jump off of the show. To keep my monologue rolling, what is this game? Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a reactive, turn-based RPG where you lead the members of Expedition 33 on their quest to destroy a paintress so she will stop erasing everyone. You explore a world of wonders inspired by Belle Epoque France and battle unique enemies in a turn-based RPG with real-time mechanics. For the core gameplay loop, you explore areas, battle monsters to gain XP, level up and unlock new abilities, and travel through an overworld map to the next area. So we were talking before we got on the mic. 3 of us just beat this game in the last, 12 hours. John, you were the first one to cross the finish line on Expedition 33. How did this experience change in the second act for you?
I mean, everything in this game to me keeps getting better and better the more you move forward, right? The world, after Act 1 is done, you really have a better understanding of, here's what my goals are now moving forward, because they've shifted, right? There's a big, huge emotional impact, right? The world then opens up, and you have such, a different purpose between each of the different acts, between Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, as that story unfolds. That's just, to me, feels real natural. Your purpose shifts, your focus, and keeps that story fresh and engaging, right? And then mechanically, you start to get just more things. You get more pictos. You full out your team's roster, right? And the game just becomes, you have this ability. You start getting tougher options for enemies, and you just basically you get to start to build your party how you want to build it, because now you have all the tools at your disposal. So the combat just explodes as well, to positive and negative, right? Because there's a lot of options, but it lets you just really have fun.
John, you said that very elegantly. I'm with you. I thought this game just expanded after Act 1, and I loved it. Billy, how did this experience change between Act 1 and Act 2 for you?
Yeah, I gotta agree on that. It really picked up as the game progressed. You get better at battle. You understand pictos. Kind of everything that John was saying. It really blew up, and I was really happy. I was kind of iffy on the game at first when I first started playing it, because learning new combat, how the Picto system works. Once that's all figured out, man, this is a great game.
Yeah. Great game. Scott, you in that same great game camp?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that there was ever really a moment that the combat clicked for me, any major difference between the first episode and the second episode, but story-wise, I think it drew me in a lot more later on, because I know you were talking to Joey last episode and saying that he was kind of down on the game, and I was like, well, I wasn't I wasn't totally sold on it as soon as we started, but I think it's one that the longer the game went on, the more I got pulled into it, and especially in the second act, a lot of the twists and turns. It was really like the mystery early on that pulled me in, but later on, some of the twists and turns in the story, and again, kept a mystery element going, but it was different mysteries and new mysteries, and so like I ended up really loving the game by the time it was over, and like the combat was satisfying, but again, no major like click for me, but I think the story and the world and the lore does a lot for me.
So we have 4 people who really enjoyed this experience, especially post-Act 1. Mike, I think you're in a different camp. If I can summarize your thoughts from our Part 1 discussion, I think you enjoyed the game, but you had some issues with it. How did your perspective change since the last time we talked, since playing most of Act 2?
I'm not sure I've ever been more conflicted about a game in my life. I love so much about this game, except I don't want to play this game anymore because I can't stand the combat.
And what specifically is it about the combat? And we'll dive into the nuance more in just a moment, but what was it that drove you crazy? Was it the parry system? Was it, like, what made you hate this with a burning fiery passion?
It feels like they don't give you enough tools in combat that if you don't master the dodge parry timing for every monster, especially late game where they hit you like, an oncoming train if you mess up, they don't give you enough healing options. They don't give you enough. The items options are woefully limited, and I think that's the biggest mistake they made. For people that don't succeed at the combat, give us more healing items, more versatile healing items, more powerful healing items to balance that out, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because we didn't set this up in either parts of our discussion, but the item system in this game is extremely limited. You have a revive potion, you have a healing potion, and you have an energy potion that gives you action points to fuel all of your abilities. And Mike, I'm hearing you say that that's not enough tools in the toolbox. I thought it was refreshing and like just awesome to have such like a streamlined experience. Like I wasn't worried about potions, high potions. I wasn't worried about like the Final Fantasy level of inventory management. So I'm just curious where you guys check in on the item system, if that was too bare bones or if it was a refreshing change to the formula.
I mean, I'm playing through Rebirth right now, right? So like the Final Fantasy, comparison is very, very much in my mind. And I love the fact that, like, I got 3 things, and they kind of level up over time, and I don't have to worry about buying these, managing these, because there's already way too much to manage in 33 with all the other systems. So to me, it was kind of like, hey, I know, like, if I'm going to heal this turn, I can drop this healing potion, and it's just going to basically restore my health. And I get 7 of them, or 8 of them, you get more as you go. So, like, I felt like they just do what you, by the time you upgrade each one, because you find upgrades throughout the time to where, like, say, hey, now my healing potion is maxed out, and it basically will max out your health if you use it. Same with like a revive or your energy, right? Oh, this is basically going to max out my energy. So it just became a tool for me where I actually didn't use the items all that much outside of revives. Because to me, I was like, oh, guy hit me, I died, revive, and then I'm trying to revive Mayel so she can do her big world killer attack that will wipe out the boss for me. So I loved just having 3 things to think about.
I don't think I used items as much as I would in any other RPG that I've ever played. Maybe revive, but barely anything healing. I never used the AP boost one. It was quite, like John said, kind of refreshing because you did have to plan out the skills that you equip for your party. And it was kind of fun just kind of strategizing what's going to work best for you, because you could wind up with Minoko could have a lot of buffing spells that he could throw on the party. Even CL, she's got a couple where she can heal and buff the party too. So I thought that was fun. It was nice not collecting like 99 high potions. So I dug that.
Well, my entire strategy revolved around having Mael go first, and then how can I get Mael back into the action. So a lot of RPGs is like a war of attrition. Like you have your party, they're taking damage over time, you're wearing down, and so you need to manage that health. I had kind of a different take on how I approached this game. Like everything was a one-off battle, and I approached everything like a boss fight. So It's go in, hit as hard as I can, as fast as I can. I didn't really start using a healing ability until Minoko in the, like, inside the monolith was the first time I needed some extra healing beyond my chroma elixirs in between. Mike, did you want to give a rebuttal before I jump more into the combat?
Well, just to give my experience, when I was in the monolith, the last sequence I got through, so I leave the save point, I go to a fight. At the end of the fight, I had to go back to the save point because I used every single revive that I had in that single fight. And so I go back the second time to fight it again and think, okay, well, I've seen their attacks. The second time, I only used 6 of my revives, so I guess it was better, but, I mean, that is such a grind. It felt so painful. And I'm like, this is just... Give me a revive that revives more than one person at a time, maybe. How's that?
So, Mike, did you do any of the additional content, right? So, like, there's a ton of extra content. Most of it opens up 3, right? But there's a lot of stuff you can do along the way through, like, Act 2 that gives you additional pictos, different weapons, right? All that sort of stuff. So, like, because I had a completely different experience. When I got to the monolith, like, the enemies, like, they didn't get to round 2, right? Like I was, like, my whole thing was, like, the way my build was, I was just mowing them down, and I might have to try and parry on a couple tough areas. So, like, I avoided the parry system by just decimating things with my skill build out and cheesing the game, right? So, like, I'm wondering if, like, and I did a lot of side content before I got to the monolith. So, higher level, right? More pictos, more attribute points that I was able to spend might have made that easier for me. Where did you sit in, like, that extra content, and maybe, like, where you just, like, it's a completely different experience than you and I had? Because if you come in like, well, that's way more challenging, and you had to use the parry system, I could see the frustration.
Well, I try to always nose around and hit everything, but the way the travel system worked, they had fast travel, but it was only within that area, which I thought was a little bit too limiting, because if you wanted to go back to an earlier area, you had to leave the area you're in, you had to swim or walk or fly for 8 miles to get back to the other area to walk through. I wish they'd had a little bit more flexible fast travel to go back through other areas to maybe, find things. And
to layer on top of that, how about when you do that long trek across the map, it's like, oh yeah, I saw this thing earlier, and it was too high level for me, so I trek all the way across the map, I go and I fight this dude, I get my butt kicked, it's like, oh, I can't save before I go in there, so now I'm back where I started. It's like, oh, well, that really sucks.
You got to change your outfit. If you change your outfit, it saves the game.
How about just let me save the game before I run in somewhere?
True, right? The save system.
I don't know if I was under-leveled. I mean, what level do you guys know, like, approximately at the end of Act 2, what level do you think your characters were at?
I can't remember.
High level, high 40, low 50 for me. I ended the game at, like, 64.
Yeah, I'm gonna
that
say
sounds about right.
I was at, like, 36, I think, when I got to the monolith, so I was probably under-leveled then.
Yeah, you probably weren't, and I'll also say, like, they really amped up the difficulty within the monolith. Like, up until that point, I was cruising through everything, and I just got, awesome at the parry system, because I'm great at games.
Now, did you guys...
I guess I'm not.
Did you guys dump a lot of points into, like, vitality and stuff? I've learned that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. That was the number one thing that I put points into, was health, yeah.
Yep, and then...
So I think that helped me just survive a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. That helped a lot. I did some research going into Act 2 and the end of the game, paying attention to what weapon you're using and the, like, ABC little stat boosts it gives you. Mm-hmm. When you go into your attributes, it'll show those, like, this sword gives better vitality, like an A rating. So you dump all your points in that A rating, and it just helps improve the character at that point.
Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't touch vitality in this early game. I did, but, like, basically I was like, I want to go first, so it was always agility for everybody. And then once I get my agility up to, like, yeah, I'm going first, then I dump stats into what I want to do. Do I want this person to crit? Right? Do I want this person to do other things? Right? And I had strategies around my different characters where, like, you can, with additional Picto stuff, you can say, oh, my crit's 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So then I'm getting crits every time. So then you can do stuff where, like, you take, Luna, and you say, hey, I have this skill that gives me all 4 different elements. every time I crit, and then her second turn I automatically get like her elemental like nuke spell that uses every element. So like it'd be a 2-turn deal, right? But if I have go first and I'm really fast, a lot of times I'd get 2 turns in a row, and I would just wipe out entire parties with her, with no one else doing anything.
Huh, that is not the character that I would have built everything around. Let's talk a little bit more about the nuance to the combat. You battle monsters, you earn XP, you level up, you upgrade your attributes, you buy new skills, you use a weapon, you equip up to 3 Pictos, and throughout the game you equip secondary skills called Lumina. Scott, did the tools in the toolbox or the combat options evolve much in the back half of the game for you?
I wouldn't say that they evolved a lot since the first chapter or first act, but there's just more of them. There's like way more abilities, way more Pictos. You're constantly picking up Pictos, and that really lets you kind of play the game however you want. You can set up your loadouts, and like for example, I think I did my strategy pretty much the exact opposite of what John did, because he was saying he's one-shotting things, the enemy doesn't get a turn to play. I set my team up basically all around defense, and I wanted as many chances to try to land parries as possible, so I was dumping everything into health, and I had nothing in attack or speed or luck for most of the game.
Ooh.
And so I was like just tanking hits over and over and over because I was just trying to learn like parry patterns. And it wasn't until I beat the game at like 2 p.m. yesterday, and it wasn't until I guess a few days ago I started putting some points into damage and some into agility, because I realized that was extremely important, because a lot of times enemies were going twice before I could go. So
Scott, was that a fun way to approach this game? Like, I'm much more in the John camp. I was just less efficient in my build. Like, I tried to nuke everything with my L before they could act. Like, how was that experience, just tanking hits and trying to master parrying everything for, like, 40 unique enemies?
Scott's a masochist.
No, I thought it was satisfying, because I thought the parry and counter system was the most satisfying thing in the game to me. Like, doing big attacks and big damage was really cool. But like, I mean, you get extra damage for timing your attacks correctly, but I don't know, it just wasn't quite as satisfying as landing that parry, although I'm a big Sekiro fan, and and hitting the parries in Sekiro is like everything. So especially when you get like a big string of attacks and you parry every single one perfectly, and then it just does the time pause and slow down, and you're like, oh man, I can't curse on this podcast, but they're in trouble. So yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun, but I think a lot of battles did feel a lot more like a grind than they probably should have, because I was just doing super low damage to everything overall, unless I landed that parry.
Wow, Mike, I want to pivot to you here, because I know that you played Sekiro, you got past the bull, that's the physical ending of the game. So, like, how were you able to make it through Sekiro, which is also parry-based, and struggled so much with this game?
Well, I struggled with Sekiro because I was never good at the parries, but there's ways to... there are other routes to get around. Even if you're not good at parrying, you can do enough dodging, you can use the arm abilities... You can use stealth. They give you enough flexibility, just barely, to finish Sekiro without ever getting good at parrying. And I didn't feel like I had enough tools in this game to get through my inability to deal with the parrying and dodge mechanics, especially against the tougher enemies. I could overwhelm weaker enemies, but I was never strong enough to overwhelm stronger enemies. And then I'd get in this cycle where, well, they attacked, somebody's dead, and the other person's badly wounded, and my one person who's good at healing will have to heal, and then they get them up, and before they can go again, the enemy attacks. I miss the dodge or parry. Oh, they're dead again. It's just a cycle of despair eventually. There's one boss that's optional later in the game where he will eat your fallen comrades as soon as they die, and like that sounds like that would be your personal nightmare, because like I had Lumina equipped where everyone auto revives, and the stupid snake would eat everybody before they auto revived. It's like it swallows
Mael or Monoko, and it's like, oh, Monoko is revived, but like they're gone because they're inside the snake's tummy. I found that super duper frustrating. Scott, you mentioned that you're constantly picking up Pictos. Did you feel like that was satisfying to have that many arrows in the quiver, or was it overwhelming to have that many options to pick from?
I think, like, I see what they were going for, and I'm sure it's, for a lot of fans, it's really satisfying to be able to set a loadout to the way that they want, because you can customize your playstyle in this game in so many different ways. And I think that's really what they were going for. But for just your casual player going through the story, and especially for someone like me who has OCD and I want to like learn every Picto as I go on, I'm like, oh, I walked 10 feet, I picked up a new Picto, I got to equip it, and then it's 4 battles before I can. There were points later in the game where I have Pictos on like several different characters, and I haven't learned those before I picked up 3 new Pictos. And so it's like you're just constantly getting new Pictos, and I also have to stop and like read what they do, also check out their stats to make sure that I'm putting like the strongest stat Pictos on my characters because I want them buffed up as much as possible. So for me it was just a little bit frustrating, but like I see what they were going for, and it's freedom. And I think that's, you know, a great strength. I just didn't catch on. Like, I shouldn't be worrying about all these Pictos until way later. Like, at a certain point, I picked up a new Picto, and I'm like, I'm not even going to look at this because, like, I'm not dying. I'm not struggling. Like, why am I worried about learning every single thing until there's an enemy that's going to take me down, and I go, okay, now I need to rethink my strategy. So that was, I think, just a problem with me, honestly. But yeah, I felt like it was a little bit overwhelming.
I think that, you know, I agree it's overwhelming, Scott. Like, I don't think there's too many options, and I definitely don't think there's too many Pictos. I just think that they didn't have enough time or the right team to like create a great system to manage all that. Right? You're getting all these systems, and I want to go in and I want to categorize and like build loadouts or do something to where like it's a little bit more simple, and like, you know, each character kind of plays in such a different and drastic way. I think it would have been like really cool, like to not have like your Lumina or your Picto points, right, as like an actual resource too, right? Like I think that like that, you know, it's great. It lets us break the game, but as I'm progressing and I'm getting all these new Pictos, I'm trying to figure out like, oh, where do I dump these Picto points on these characters, right? And then I'm having to go look at the Pictos and say, well, I don't have enough Picto points to like get these and assign these Lumina, and do I need this one or do I not need this one? So like having just like a set amount that would like scale with your level, I think would have been really, really cool. Or maybe like then like have a couple items, or like have Pictos that give you more Picto points or stuff like that to expand it out. Would have maybe made it a little easier. I do think that the flexibility you have though, and the fun combos is worth the mess. For like, you know, what I would do when I would get a new Picto or this or that, I had my builds kind of set up, and I would say, does that thing, like, oh, is it burn damage? Is it, you know, additional turn time? Is it, you know, whatever it's giving me, does that impact any of my current builds? Yes, it does. That improves it. I'd go try and get it. If not, yeah, I would just leave it until I started to struggle and I needed to change my build out.
Do you guys ever think that you worry too much about video games or like think too much about things? Because like, I hear you. It's a lot of options, but like I didn't think about the Pictos too much. Mael had her build. Mael, everything was centered around Mael. Like she went first, she hit hardest, and like she had her 3. But other than that, pick up a new Pictos. It's like, oh, well, this will just go on my foot collector. Well, because he can't possibly leave the party until I've collected every single foot from a Nevron in this game. And it's like, you know, I'd pop them on, I'd go through the 4 battles, and then it's like, oh, what's the next highest one? And like I literally didn't really think about the skills on the Pictos for anyone but Mael the entire game.
But the problem with that is that I don't want to be forced to have, you know, character A, character B. I don't want to be forced to always have that person in the party. If you give me 6 players, I want to be able to rotate all 6 through equally and succeed equally or relatively equally, even a foot fetish guy. And so if your whole combat system is revolving around Mael, you know, going first and killing everything, well, then she can't leave the party, and that's not really fun.
Well, based on my playthrough, I think that both Verso and Lune would agree with you because they were on the bench for like basically since I got Minoko.
I mean, I think that you can have a strategy that resides on one person, right? And I think that's what a lot of people did with Mael out the gate, because she does become that powerhouse early on, I think, which is a really easy build you can kind of figure out, where it's like, oh, if I just have this sword that I get, if you get that sword that lets her start in Virtuous Stance, right? Because not everybody gets it, because if you do that battle with Golga, or it's the tournament that you do it differently, you don't get that weapon right away. But if you get that weapon, it's like, oh yeah, I want her to start here with this because she is going to do this massive damage, and that goes down that path. But like, you can turn each one of your characters into that powerhouse very, very easily with the right strategy, right? It's that to me was the fun part of like, okay, I figured out how to break the game with Mael. How do I break the game with Lune? How do I break the game with Verso? How do I break it with Minoko? And how do I break it with CL? Like, how do you break it with each one? I was all about, here's the tools I have. I'm going to, like, break this game, much like I play Final Fantasy VIII, right? I'm going to draw for 6 hours so I can have 99 of this spell so I can destroy everything. I'm going to front load all my work, right? And then, like, the rest of the game, I'm just pushing, like, X and watching things just, like, be blown away.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we embrace life. Billy, what were your thoughts on the Pictos? You mentioned in part one that, especially early on, you struggled with the Pictos system. Did that get easier for you as the game went on?
It did, yeah. Like I said earlier, I did some research, watched some videos, spoiler-free videos, on how to understand the Pictos better, how to spend Lumina better, and how to understand your weapons and how to set all of those up together. It got so much more fun when it clicked. It was just, yeah, it was eye-opening for me, because I was like, aha, okay, now I can do a strategy, build these characters how I want. It was a lot of fun.
One more thing on spending your Pictos points or your Lumina points. I had, even though I only used 3 characters for basically the entire game, I spread my Pictos points evenly across everyone. John, you mentioned like strategizing who gets what points. Like, that wasn't a part of the equation at all for me. It's like, oh, I wait until I have a multiple of 5. Everyone gets their Picto points. Like, if I have 40, everyone gets 8. Great, let's power up.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about them after a while until like Scott, like, okay, now my build is starting to weaken. Oh, I got like 300 of these stupid things I picked up, right? So then I would go and I would just do the same thing, apply them evenly across everybody. I avoided CL right away. Like, she didn't get anything, which I feel like if I ever went and replayed it, I would really focus on her. So like, then I would eventually catch her up and like, yeah, now everybody has an even amount and it's not a big problem. I think it's an early game like thing where you're like, I'm getting these resources, how do I spend them? And you start to have FOMO over, did I do this wrong? And it's one of those things where like, no, man, by the end of the game, like, it doesn't matter, right? You can go and grind to get any of the resources you have. You're getting in fact, there's even like, if you go back to the Gestrel village and you talk to this one Gestrel, he's like, oh, you collected all of these logs, and for every log you collect, he gives, like, I went and talked to him, he's like, here's 400 Picto points for you, right? I'm like, oh, well, that's helpful, because he gives you so many for all the logs you've collected, and I didn't talk to him until after Endgame. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. Everybody get their points.
Let's mow through everything. Did I give you a chance to finish your thought, Billy?
No, I was just going to go off on I follow up with what John was saying. You got to put some more time with CL. I didn't think I was going to use her as much as I was going to. She's fun.
She's the best.
She's so fun. She's got good high damage, but then she can do some buff for the team. At the end of the game, I had it where with the Pictos I had equipped, Mael went first, applied burn damage. CL went second, and one of her skills is she give a party member 5 AP.
Intervention.
Yes, and then they play immediately next. So I'd dump that onto Mael, and then do the attack that would throw her into Virtuous Stance. That was so fun.
Yeah, that was basically my approach to 2/3 of the game, too. Mael goes first, and then Mael goes second.
Yep.
Billy and I are the same. One other thing that I want to poke at on the combat here, throughout the game, you unlock these gradient attacks, and like you get them by building up your relationships with your characters. Very Persona. Conceptually, I thought it was an awesome system, but in practice, it was like hitting the enemies with a wet noodle, and it was so frustrating. It's like, not until I had Verso's level 3 did I feel like it really had any impact on combat. Did you guys have a different experience with the gradient attacks?
I liked it. CL's was great if you want to... there's one where she throws on like 10 dark cards on one of hers, which I liked a lot, because you could just build that up. But yeah, like Monoko's lightning one didn't use all that much. But it was, what's nice about it, it's like a free hit, because then they play immediately after. So it's not like it took a turn from them. So I liked it.
Yeah, I'm lukewarm on the system. Anyone else have a thought on the gradients before we jump on to story?
It was, to me, I didn't do any of the build. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I was just saying they were wildly uneven. A couple of them were wonderfully useful, and a lot of them you tried them and said, well, that doesn't really seem that good. And I kind of wish they put more work into making more of them equally useful. Because the ones that I used, I liked a lot, but there were several that I used once and never touched again.
Yeah, I didn't even use everyone's, right? Like, I feel like it was tough for me to even get them out. Again, it might be because I wasn't building my gradient meter, because I was destroying everything on turn 1, breaking the game. But it was one of those things where, like, it'd be interesting that you would kind of have to have a build that takes Pictos, that builds out your gradient, flow, so that, like, as I'm parrying, as I'm attacking these things, I get more and more gradient points or whatever, and then you get to use them more. The only time I ever used them was there's a few boss fights and individual fights where I was like, oh, I'm about to lose, and oh, this person has their gradient attack, and like, look at that, I'm going to get an extra turn and then let me win. So it was, to me, kind of like, from the same thing like Scott was talking about parrying, when like you do this like big combo and like I get this parry and you win the fight because of that last parry on that last thing, great. Or I'm almost dead, but oh man, I got this Hail Mary gradient attack and that let me revive some people or get an extra attack in that actually killed this enemy. So that's where it was kind of like, I get where they're going, like they're kind of like limit breaks from Final Fantasy. I just think it was one more thing to kind of learn about.
Yeah, hopefully in their next game it's a more fleshed out system. So from here, we're going to move on to the story. So spoilers, spoiler alert. From this point on, there is no point of this story that is off limits. So we're going to talk about anything that we want to talk about with the story. We wrapped up part 1 without revealing the spoiler at the end of the first act, unless you were like on mic right before and like someone just flippantly mentions it, which I feel horrible about. Sorry, Mike. But once again, spoiler alert for Expedition 33. At the end of Act 1, Renoir kills Gustave, cementing himself as a big bad. At that same time, you meet the immortal Verso, who joins your adventure. In the beginning of Act 2, you recruit Monoko, a gestal or paintbrush person, and then from there you move forward to kill the paintress and dodge Renoir along the way. In all, the game has 6 playable characters. So which character had the best arc or moment in the story? Was there anyone that you didn't expect to care about who totally won you over? John, we'll start with you.
There is so many like key moments that were amazing in this game, and I think each character you go through, if you do all the story bits with them to find everything about them, they have some sort of touching or heartbreaking, moment that takes place that is just delivered in an amazing way. So all the characters, great progression, nuanced, right, complex, loved it. But I think like my favorite, thinking about the entire game, was Verso. I love how you begin to kind of understand more and more about him as the game goes on. You think that he is like this great savior. He's actually really complex, and he he's got this ulterior motive, and he has to like deal with all this guilt of like, I need to get my mom out of this painting. That's my mom, but it's not my real mom, right? And then like, I'm sick of being immortal, but I'm going to have to basically, I know I'm going to kill all these people that are my friends now, and I'm not sharing that. So like, I loved all of that and how they brought it all together. And like, he just shows so much growth. And I love like his ending where he like comes to like say, I just got to close all this out. I'm going to help this soul go off into the sunset. So Verso's, yeah, probably my favorite. I do want to give a special shout out to Renoir though, right? Because I think that he's just like he's bad. Sorry,
Don't swear on the show, John.
don't swear on the show. And just a great design, right? He's just awesome and a great character design. Andy Serkis is amazing, right? Like as the voice actor there, and I think he's a great example of a villain who's not really a villain, right? He just wants his family to stop hiding in this fake reality. You know, he lost his son. He's trying to like help his family recover from this horrible, experience. And his wife actually pulled him out from the same fate from a different painting, right? So he's like, I know what you guys are going through. I've done this. And he's just trying to like do his best as a dad. And, he's worried about losing his daughter and his wife after he lost his son. And like, he's not really a villain. He's just like, I don't think you guys are right to be in this painting, experiencing life this way and grieving in this way, and come back to reality. So it was just a really interesting villain once you kind of realize why he's there.
You can go ahead, Scott.
So, okay. No, I fully agree with everything that John said there. And I just thought it was interesting that this is maybe one of the only times that I've finished a game and thought that, yeah, I fully agree with the villain. Like they are, he's not really a villain. He's correct on pretty much everything, and he's trying to save his family from their obsession and like their coping mechanisms. And I just thought that was kind of interesting because there's a lot of villains that I've seen their side and they've become a relatable character, but I don't know if I've ever had one where I'm like, yeah, in order for everything to turn out okay, I think he should probably get his way.
And to layer on top of that, I think it's a little confusing because there's two versions of Renoir. There's the one that lives within the painting that is Miles' mom's projection of Renoir, and he is a big bad and he's a villain, but then you also encounter the real Renoir inside the painting, and you wind up going against him too. And it's like, aside from the little bit of like mind effiness that's a little hard to wrap your head around, I thought Renoir was really interesting, particularly his portrayal as the villain through his wife's grief. Scott, any other characters that stood out to you?
Yes, I do just want to touch on what you said there, though, because it's really interesting because it starts off with like the paintress being the villain for a good chunk of the game, and then you see like, the big twist is revealed that everybody's in a painting. We haven't really even kind of mentioned that, and that's a crazy twist. And then she almost kind of becomes sympathetic, but then later on at like near the end of the game, I realized no, she kind of was the true villain because she's keeping you trapped here. And so like I went back and forth several different times on like who the real antagonist was, which I thought was kind of crazy for a story like this.
Yeah, I agree. And like, it's all based around the grief of this family, because how to set this up in a sensible way and something that's hard. There's two versions of the Desandre family. You're playing with Maëlle through most of the game. She is the daughter in the family, and because of her big brother died in a fire. Verso, in real life, died in a fire. And as a consequence of that, the Desandre family has this magical ability to jump into paintings, and the mom, Maëlle's mom, throws herself into Verso's canvas in grief, and she refuses to leave, and she basically makes a copy of the family, which is how you encounter Verso in the game. He is just a painting of the son who was lost in a fire. This sounds so confusing to say all of this out loud. And so you have these interplays between the two families, the real family trapped in the painting, the painted versions of the family who are immortal. And as convoluted as it sounds trying to explain it in 10 seconds, it actually winds up playing out in a really interesting fashion.
Like the pacing on it was pretty good so that it was easy enough to follow what was going on. But it is, like, there's still a lot of stuff that I am confused about as well. And the multiple versions of characters, and there's stuff going on outside of the canvas that you have to pay attention to. So like, yeah, it is very confusing. But like in the moment in any scene, like I understood what was happening, but like the world is so vast and there's so much to it that I feel like I got to go back and like figure out how a lot of this stuff was put together. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that comes back to the story, which we'll touch on later. But regarding the characters, obviously Mael and Verso are given the most room to run because it is really a story about this family dealing with grief, and they are members of the family in some respect. But they give, what John said is correct. They give every character at least that moment or moments to display themselves, to learn and grow and show what they are. And I got to call it Shiel a little bit because she comes in fairly late, and at first I didn't really pay attention to her. But if you have a lot of talks with her and you work down her path, so to speak, she has some really great moments, and she's actually a super fun character and really well drawn in a fairly small amount of time on screen. So I want to call out how well they did with that, because that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, she was my favorite. Mike, did you see like everything with her story? Like getting the relationship all the way out? I know that you bounced off the game, so did you see any content?
I didn't see the very end of her story. No, I didn't get to the top of her relationship chart, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah, so again, spoiler alert, but she's my favorite character, and you find out through building up her relationship at the top level that she lost her husband before the adventure takes place, and she is grieving that, and you find out that she tried to kill herself, and at the very end of the relationship chart, Scott, Billy, I hope I'm not spoiling this for you guys, but like at the end of the relationship chart, you find out that Esquier saved her when she tried to kill herself. She tried to drown herself in the sea by swimming until she passed out, basically, and she woke up on the docks of Lumiere thinking, well, what the heck? What just happened? And then there's a very small moment between Esquier and Sael at the end of the game where you find out that he saved her. I'm like, oh man, I love these characters. And Sael was just so tragic, but also fun and engaging. And I really, I thought she was the most engaging character.
And to build on that and talk about, the amazing storytelling, they foreshadow that and they talk about that as soon as you meet that character, right? Mm-hmm. They are talking about like her fear of water, right? When you fight the lamplighter, I think he's called, right? Yep. And you have to jump off that cliff. She's like, I don't want to go. All right. And SK's like, I got you. I had you last time. I got you this time. And you're like, what is going on with that? Right. So like, there's just like that level of,
and he calls her, he says that she's a bad swimmer, like the first time they meet.
Right. And like, just like also the childlike nature of, how SK is like, yeah, you're just a bad swimmer and I helped you out. And like, you were just sad and you were a bad swimmer. Like, again, SK is great. Like the thing that like clicked for so many of these things with the story too is like, this is a painting in a world that was created by Verso when he was a kid. So SK is like, was made by Verso as a kid to explore this world and like be his buddy and go on adventures. So he's so childlike because of his very nature. And like, that was just like such a cool way to kind of build that story all the way and like have some heavy stuff. Cause not only did she try to commit suicide, she also lost a baby. Mm-hmm. She was pregnant when she did that, didn't know, and then they were like, when they brought her back and they saved her, she found out. So it's like, again, like double whammy for CL. I lost my husband, I lost my baby, right? All this sort of stuff, and it just puts her kind of lighthearted nature in a whole different frame of mind.
Yeah, they're not afraid to pull their punches with heavy material like that. But also, like, I think Esquier is such an interestingly written character because he seems so, like, I'm trying to remember now. Is he supposed to be Verso's stuffed animal? Like that's what his real portrayal is in the real world?
Well, they make homage to him at the very end of the game with Mael holding an Esquier stuffed animal, but I think Verso created him within the canvas as like an imaginary friend.
Imaginary friend, okay, yeah.
If you explore the mansion, right, and you unlock more rooms in this mansion that's a mirror of the mansion in the you will see that there's like little figures and statues of all the enemies and all the characters. So like, and I saw some of that in the real world too. Like when you have like that real world moment where you're real world Alicia, you see a lot of the things. So I think it's just one of those things where these were creations that were around the house. Maybe his dad had painted or built that model, and then Verso was building and painting in the store, in the painting itself.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so Esquier he's so interesting because he's definitely very wise and seems to know a lot, but he's written in such a way where he seems so childish and playful, and he says certain things that give huge plot points away, but you don't know it at the time, like his situation with Ciel. And then also there's one point where he's talking about or he's saying who his favorite people are, and he says, my favorite people are Verso and Verso, and you think it's just STA, he's being silly, but like no, he's talking about the two different versions of Verso. And like I didn't realize that until way later, and it's like, oh geez, okay, like they had a lot of this stuff thought out well in advance, and like they knew what they were doing with his writing, and I thought that was really neat.
I agree with Scott that SKA was an amazing character. Billy, who stood out to you?
Well, after hearing everybody talk about their stuff, I don't have too much to add. I agree with everybody. This is a really well written story, and I don't have too much more to add on that. I just really enjoyed appreciating Maëlle as a playable character further on in the game. I didn't utilize her at first. I did afterwards. I'm very happy I did.
Yeah, she was the best. The second act ends when you kill the paintress, setting off a heartbreaking chain reaction and pulling back the curtains on what's really going on. John, how impactful was that reveal at the end of Act 2?
I mean, you are at this point where we won. We beat the big bad, and I feel like it's just an amazing twist here where you are at this moment where you could literally end the game there. It could be game over, go explore the world, have fun, right? Everyone's going to live. And nope, actually, she was protecting all this, and now everyone's dead, right? And like they do that in such a great way. I love how then like that moment of Verso walking down the dock and reading this letter, because you're like, I was stunned. I was like, okay, what? No, like, okay, I see. Like, why is everyone dead, right? And then you read this letter that you have gotten, like Verso had received from the painted version of Alicia, right? That basically says like, yeah, the paintress is our mom, and she has been like stopping like real dad Renoir like from erasing everybody, and just slowly, she can only protect people for so much, and that's why you lose so many people every year. So you understand like what's happening, and like that would have been a like important letter for everyone to have read before, right? And just that like that understanding that Verso knew what was in it and still went ahead with his plan anyway was just, to me, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, he killed everybody. Like that was for me when everyone turned into the flowers. It's like, oh man, and I agree that they could have ended the game there. I thought that would have been an interesting endpoint for the game, because like it was super somber when like everyone melts away. It's like, oh man, like wow. And then you go into the real world and you find out about the Desandre's magical painting ability, and you get teased with some other stuff that's happening in the world, and then you're back for Act 3 to try to take on Dad. Like, Scott, how impactful was that big twist at the end of Act 2 compared to all the other twists in this game?
Yeah, it was extremely well done, because I knew going in that there were 3 acts, and I was at the end of Act 2, and it sure seemed like everything was wrapping up. It was like, putting a nice little bow on it, and then a screen comes up that says epilogue, and it's like, oh, this is after the game? Like, there's no more gameplay, or like, what's going on here? And then they fully reverse, and take all that away, and it actually shows like the epilogue line being erased, and then they go into Act 3. And I thought that was really interesting, and it was a really good twist. Just the point of them like showing that everything was actually in a canvas, because it explains so much of the world in a way that I felt like early on didn't really need to be explained. You just kind of go like, oh, this is a whimsical world, everything's crazy. Like there's a lot of mystery, and like maybe it should be, or it would be more satisfying if it was, but I just kind of like went along with, this is a weird fantasy world. But then when they say that it's actually a living painting, and so much of it just clicked and made sense, because they were making allusions to the world being aligned with painting, or like having painting themes in it.
Well, there were paintbrush people, like there's paint and art supplies everywhere.
Yeah, and they refer to spilling ink instead of spilling blood, and the main antagonist was the paintress, and so like they're definitely hinting at it, but in a way that didn't really give away that no, they're actually in a painting the entire time, which I thought was kind of a fascinating twist. But
yeah, I thought the reveal of the truth and what's going on in the real world was awesome and super interesting. I just wish there was more on the fire and Alicia's role and what's going on with her sister and the war, and like they tease all this interesting stuff, but then it's like, oh, well, let's go kill some more paint people.
DLC, Tom. They got to make that money, right? They got you on the hook, right? And honestly, like that really isn't the story, right? The story here is the family's grief of the dead son, right? And how they're all reacting to that. And I think I want to know all that stuff too. Right?
But why is he dead, and why is it Alicia's fault? Like, that's the crux. Like, she blames herself for her brother's death. Her sister blames her for her brother's death. And like, that is the heart of the mystery. It's like, why is it all Alicia or Mael's fault? And like, they tease that it is, but they don't give us a conclusive, definitive answer, and that drives me crazy.
I think actually it's a brilliant thing though, because if they tell you why, right, then you're making a choice on like, oh, it is her fault or it isn't.
Yeah, you get to judge.
You're judging, and like at this point, we don't. The writers don't want us to judge Mael or judge anyone except based around like their brother's dead, right? And like she feels guilt because she feels like it's her fault. The family feels, is antagonistic against her because they feel like it's her fault, right? But like your perspective of that will shift if you actually see it and say, actually, no, they're all just dealing with the grief, and it was none of their fault. It was the writers the whole time. Or actually, it's Verso, because they explained that Verso's really the one who did all, like, was talking, like, who, we don't know, right? We don't know anything about it. So it just lets us be focused just on how that family is dealing, and we know just enough to, like, really kind of be in that space with them. So I think it's brilliant. Tom's wrong.
Disagree vehemently. Billy, do you have thoughts that you want to share in the end of Act 2?
Yeah, I just have to agree that this is, it really hammers down on you that this is a huge story on grief, family grief, how to deal with it, who agrees, who doesn't, and then you get to the very end of the game. And then it's like you learn all of this stuff about the family and what's happening with Verso and what happened to him, what Mael wants. And then, spoiler, you get to choose at the end of the game which, if you want Mael's end of the story or if you want Verso's end of the story. And I thought that was like, that came up and I was like, oh, come on. You know what I mean? Like, that was like not in a bad way, but that was like, oh my God, like you're going to experience grief again in the very end game. So I thought they did that really well.
And let's set that up and dive into it a little bit more. At the very end of the game, like Billy said, you have a choice. Mael, or a real world Alicia / Mael, has the choice of either staying in the painting and trying to live a life within the painting, or you could side with Verso, and Verso will destroy the painting, killing everyone that you've been playing with for the entire game, but freeing Alicia in the real world. And I'll be honest, I didn't like that choice. Like, I got to the end of the game last night, and like, this feels like an impossible choice. Like, two characters say leading up to it that life keeps forcing cruel choices. I'm like, it's not life, it's you, Sandfall Interactive. So, I, for one, destroyed the painting.
I chose Mael.
First time I chose Mael, and it was I was like, this is a really hard choice. That is not like what I wanted to go Verso, and I went back again and did Versos, and that to me is the better end.
Scott?
I picked in kind of a rush because I was finishing the game right before I had to go to work.
Oh no.
But even in the moment, I knew it was a super impactful choice, and I chose Mael knowing that it was the wrong answer. Like, with everything in the conversation leading up to that choice, I'm like, Verso's right. I know he's right. And so I don't know what that says about me, whether I'm just like, okay, coddling Mael, but I chose her answer and went with her ending. And then after seeing both endings, yeah, I was fully convinced that Verso was correct.
Scott, I felt the exact same way. I didn't do it. I wasn't rushed. I literally sat on that screen for a good 5 minutes.
Me too.
Right? 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, who do I pick? And I'm like, I know Verso's the right. I should do that. He's right. Right?
Yeah.
But this is Mael's story. This is Alicia's story. Yeah, honestly, like, I didn't want to because not only is this like, their pick, but like if, Mael Alicia is going to bring everybody back. Right. And these are the characters that I just like invested all of my energy and effort into. And we had this adventure to save everyone. And okay, well, I'm going to go with that side. Like, we're going to bring everybody back. And like, I'm going to give Mael the benefit of the doubt that she's not going to stay in here forever, and hope that she does the right thing after she brings everyone back and actually does say, hey, I am going to leave this painting, Dad.
She's an addict, man. Like, there's no chance she was leaving. Like, and that was the crux. She needed somebody to help her. Like, she wasn't capable of moving beyond the fantasy on her own. Mike, what side do you think you would have chosen? Would you have given Mael her wish to stay within the painting, or would you have torn that zombie up like me?
I've thought about that for a long time, and that's the brilliance of it is, you're right. The correct choice is obvious, but it's incredibly difficult to make. Mm-hmm. And I kind of think I'd have taken the Mael choice, even knowing it's not really the correct choice, but it's the one emotionally after all those hours, it's the one you want to be able to make rather than the one you should make.
But yeah, even choosing the Verso ending wouldn't have given you a happy ending.
There's no happy ending.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I think the point is, like, having to deal with reality and having to deal with the loss of someone is hard. It's not happy. But ultimately, I think it ends up being the healthier option, and that's what they want you to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt so wrong after I picked it, and then they played that ending, because, again, spoiler, Mael's ending, like, the way that I've read all kinds of different people who are like, it's the right ending, and this is why, and this and that. Verso got old, and he got what he wanted. But, like, to me, I just viewed it as like, oh, this is all just really fake, and it's not real. This, like everything up until that point that Mael experienced was real. This is my experience, my life, this and that, because she didn't know who she really was, right? So it's 16 years of being this person. But at this point, I'm making this choice to like live this unreal life, right? And it wasn't like, I was hoping it was going to be done in the way where like, yay, I'm bringing all my friends back so that they can live, right? For them, for CL. And for all that. And everyone gets what they want, right? Here's CL, and she gets her husband and her baby, and Gustav's back with Sophie. It's like, yay, this is the happy ending. But then, like, the way they just kind of then, like, looked at Verso in that scene when he comes out to play piano, and I'm just like, no, this isn't what he wanted, right? And he kind of knows that. And I like, to me, I just, like, I finished it, and I said, okay, I gotta do the other ending, because that was wrong. That was wrong.
Yeah, like, Verso looking like he's trapped, like he's a puppet, like he's another one of Mael's playthings in there. And they do the the quick shot to Mael's face, like covered in paint, and it's like the sickness that her mother had, And so it's like she's becoming the new paintress, essentially. She's getting afflicted with this addiction that she just can't break, and it's consuming her.
The other reason why I think deep down, right away that the Alicia Mael choice is wrong is as soon as you do that, like, or no, I'm sorry, but like, just like, that is not tied in. What I was trying to allude to is like, Verso's initial decision to run in and do what he's going to do was this really interesting moment where like Lune is like looking at him from outside, right? That was like that one moment, like I just sticks with me, and that wasn't tied to the ending. It's before the ending. I got confused. But it's a cool moment where like he runs in to destroy everything, and like Lune is just like sitting outside the bubble, and she just has this like forget you look on her face. I can't believe destroy all of us
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments in this game was Lune at the beginning of Act 3, where it's the first time Verso talks to her after he gets everyone erased, and then Mael brings them all back, and she's like, you think in false dichotomies, it's not an either-or choice. There are other viable options if you just trusted us enough to talk, and like that moment comes around again at the very end with Verso running in to destroy the world. So we talked for an hour on Expedition 33. There are a lot more things that I had in the show notes, but I'm not just wrapping this up because Billy and I need to go play D&D. But I am going to jump ahead a little bit. I want to go around the horn and first talk about where this game struggles, if we each have a point on where this game struggles, and then we'll wrap up with what this game does extremely well. So Billy, any gripes with this game? We love this experience, right? Like, you and I are similarly aligned. We love this game. Is there anything that brought the experience down for you?
I don't think brought it down. I think it was just the difficulty, and I know we touched on this in the first episode of the podcast that we did. I think it was the learning curve when it came to like Pictos and Lumina and figuring that out in the very beginning. If you just like press X your way through all of the tutorials, it's going to be a grind figuring out how to use everything and how to build your characters to where you want them. I'd say Falls Flat would probably be towards that area. Act 2 and on, I thought was brilliantly done. At first, you're trying to just figure everything out, how the world works, what the story is. But I can't find too many faults in anything. I mean, other than just getting like blatantly frustrated with some of these big bad bosses that just try to wipe you out and trying to figure out parry timing, but that's what you're supposed to do. So I don't really have a fall flat moment, but it would have been nice to have a little bit more help on how to build Pictos and Lumina and stuff like that.
So Billy says it's a timeless classic. Mike, where did this game struggle?
I don't know. For me, just the combat really fell flat the further you went. Well, just as an example, obviously you guys know I had a huge problem with the first Axon fight, and it just about killed me. In the real world, I mean, not just in the game. But even the second Axon fight, it's the songstress or whatever. So right before you get to that fight, you pick up a Picto that, prevents you from being charmed.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, well, that's probably important. So I equipped on someone right away. But it was also like right before the boss. Like, okay, well, I'll take one run at him. Of course, it turns out you really need to be protected from charm in that fight. So I'm like, okay, I'll have to get this learned so that everybody can have it equipped. Well, there weren't really many fights around there, so I ended up having to trek way around to get enough fights in, and then rejigger all my Pictos so I can get that in on everybody I was going to use. And it felt so clunky that I could not have got through that fight without that ability. And to get that ability on everybody just took enough work that, simply give me that Picto at the start of the dungeon, so by the time I got to the boss, I would already be ready for that, rather than making me have to take extra work to get myself in a situation where I can actually win the fight. And stuff like that. There were just too many moments where I felt like they could have made this work a lot better with just a little more. Give us a spell that heals multiple people early in the game, rather than having only healing spells that affect one person as your main healing option in combat. Stuff like that.
And Mike, I know you're a big fan of the FromSoft games, and lots of people draw comparisons, probably from the overworld exploration to FromSoft. Is it fair to say that you missed the FromSoft level of polish? Because, it feels like giving you the tool that you need earlier to have it equipped for everyone would have been a very FromSoft way to approach that specific scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're not trying to make that kind of game, and that's wrong with that. But I just feel like there's a lot of ways they could have, just with a little bit of extra thought into the mechanics of how things are set up, and made this so much smoother a game to play. You know, there's a ton of brilliance in their design, but in their execution, there's just a lot of little small things that should have been better. And I hope that they learn from this. And if they can make a sequel or a follow-up game of a different type, but without those mechanical difficulties, man, they could make something incredible.
Agreed. John, any issues with this timeless classic?
I mean, I do think too many systems too early on, right? I think that there's some growing pains there, and if you're not a systems person and you don't want to mess around with that, a little bit more time in the oven to clean that up, and what we're saying here is those are the rough edges that need to be smoothed out to make some of those things, to respect your time. So if you're giving me this thing that I need for the boss, give me time to get it figured out so then I can get it equipped and I don't have to go back around and figure other ways to do that, right? And I think that's just, that's growing pains for a new developer. And I think, that's my take.
Scott?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you guys said about the systems being a little bit overwhelming early on. I think even if you are a systems person, it's just a lot, but it's hard to kind of ding it for that, because you get used to things the more you play. I guess if I had to really ding it for anything, it would be navigational stuff. A mini map would have been fantastic, some better ways to navigate the overworld instead of having to open your map. Just remembering what's in what area, because it becomes overwhelming when they finally let you go anywhere you want. But I mean, these are kind of minor quibbles. It's overall, I think it's definitely going to be a Game of the Year contender, and I think a lot of people are already kind of viewing it as a classic. So
yeah,
no major gripes.
The correct answer is platforming. Any platforming section of this game was horrific, and it's something they should have just stripped out entirely. So
Hold that.
Let's wrap up our discussion this way. Where did this game shine, and what tier of RPG is this? Billy, best thing about this game, and what tier of RPG is Clair Obscur Expedition 33?
I'm going the story. That was the best part of this game. I really enjoyed it. I loved the twists. I love that it was a take on grief, and I won't belabor the subject because we talked about it already so much, but I absolutely loved it. When it came to battles and parrying and Pictos and Lumina, when everything clicked, it was just wonderful. I really had a great time. I'm putting this probably up in my top 5-ish favorite RPGs.
Okay. I love this game. Top 5 RPGs.
You heard it here, folks.
Witcher.
I'm going to battle this with Tom at a later time.
The Witcher, Baldur's Gate 1, 2, or 3, Final Fantasy, any number of them. You're seriously putting it up at top 5 RPG of all time.
Tom, it's 10:21 in the morning right now, and I'm not even drunk, and I'm telling you, that's my answer.
Now, let's be fair. Billy, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have just started your journey into RPGs more recently and don't have 20, 30 years of experience with the genre.
Incorrect. I have been playing RPGs with Scott since we were kids.
Billy introduced me to Final Fantasy.
Yep.
All right. Then this is a hot take.
That's right. That's why Tom is so taken aback right now.
Well, I don't mean to be taken aback, because top 5 lists are all personal preference, right? I'm just I'll stay where I'm at, and you will see that there's a gap. I really enjoyed this game. I love this experience, and like I was addicted to this game basically from the moment that I set foot in Lumiere. I thought it was such a somber and interesting experience. I loved it, but I wouldn't put it in that top tier. I think it's my favorite game since Lies of P, and I loved Lies of P. But it's just like, it's in not the top tier of RPGs, but probably the tier beneath that for me. So there's any number of Final Fantasies above it, The Witcher, Baldur's Gates, and like, I think it's great, but I don't think it's like greatest game of all time material. John, you want to jump in next?
So I would probably land in between you and Billy. It's S tier for me, right? I don't think it's going to make my top 5, but it'd be close up there because of how well the story and the characters are portrayed here, and because it does have fun systems that I love. I like a game I can break, right? And to me, that makes it an excellent RPG. And to me, like, one of the big things though about a role-playing game for me is that story. Like, am I walking away with something that I remember that's impactful for me, with, you know, either individual things like individual quest lines or an overall arcing storyline, and this hit on both those, right? So to me, that's where this sits on that top level.
Then Mike, how about you?
Like I said at the beginning, I've never been more conflicted about a game. This beautiful thing here that I don't enjoy, and it's hard to wrap my mind around. It wouldn't make my top 50 RPGs I've played. Honestly, I've played mediocre RPGs that I know are mediocre that I absolutely would rather play than play this game. That's just the cold hard truth, and it kind of hurts to say that, but it's true. I did not enjoy playing this game. The more I played it, the less I enjoyed playing it, despite the fact that I could recognize how brilliant the story and the writing, and it's a beautifully made game, but I didn't have fun playing it after a while.
Follow-up question for you then, Mike. If Sandfall Interactive makes another game, whatever it is, maybe it's a sequel, maybe it's a new IP, but it's similar systems like turn-based, parry-based game, is that something that you're ever going to play, or are you going to be a pass on Sandfall Interactive?
I think I'd maybe wait for it to show up on like PS Plus or something rather than buy it, to tell you the truth. That might be the way to go, because if I felt like it was the same kind of situation, it'd be hard-pressed to spend money on it with the fear that I'd get, 20 hours in and just not be able to push through.
Well, I think it's a fascinating take that you can appreciate so much of the world, but you just hate the gameplay. Scott, what about you? Where does this game shine, and what tier of RPG is it for you?
Yeah, I think I definitely have kind of the opposite experience of Mike, as I grew to love it more over time. And I would probably place it somewhere similar to what John said. It's high up there. I hadn't really thought about like ranking it in one of my top 5 or anything. I don't know if it would crack that, but I definitely think it's an extremely well-made game. I really like a lot of the gameplay systems. The story was really kind of what sold it for me, is the characters, and just the amount of attention and love that they put into all of it is really kind of saying something. So yeah, I would put it very high up, I guess, is my final answer.
Yeah, maybe it'd have a shot at my top 10, like towards the bottom of that list, but I don't know. Great game. But that wraps up our discussion on Clair Obscur Expedition 33 by Sandfall Interactive. Next up, we're playing College Football 2026 by EA Sports. We're playing that for a month, and then we are moving on to a 2-part discussion of Star Wars Outlaws. On the main show, we posted our episode about the Ghostbusters board game earlier this month. Next month covers the John Wick film franchise, and then after that, we're watching the Blade Runner films. I hope that you'll join in for our next iteration of Outside is Overrated Game Club and jump in and play with us. Please support Outside is Overrated at patreon.com/OiO. For Mike, for John, for Scott, for Billy, and for myself at Thompson Logic OiO. Until next month, stay inside, kids.
Au revoir.
Mon ami.